Let's go Dolphins! I think we may be overlooking the players who could completely change the Miami Dolphins season. Not the biggest stars. Not the players everyone talks about every single day. I'm talking about the players whose development could determine whether this team exceeds expectations or falls short once again. Because when you really look at this roster, one thing becomes obvious. The Dolphins don't necessarily need 10 players to suddenly become superstars. They need a handful of key players to take the next step. And if that happens, everything changes. Seriously, think about it. How many teams around the NFL surprise people every season? Usually, it isn't because they signed the biggest free agents. It isn't because they won every offseason headline. It's because a few young players suddenly become impact players at exactly the right time. And according to everything we've been hearing, Miami may have several players capable of doing exactly that. But here's what makes this conversation even more interesting. Not every player on this list plays the same position. One could transform the pass rush. Another could completely change the offense. One is trying to bounce back after an incredibly disappointing rookie season. Another is entering his second year carrying enormous expectations. And one rookie could quietly become one of the biggest surprises on the entire roster. The question is, which one will actually deliver? Because if these players reach the level many people believe they're capable of reaching, the outlook for the Dolphins could look very different than many national analysts are predicting. Before we continue, make sure you've already smashed that like button if you believe this Dolphins team is capable of surprising people in 2026. And today I want to hear from the most optimistic Dolphins fans watching. Comment below. Go Dolphins! Our young stars are ready. Let's fill the comments with positive energy as we get closer to training camp. Now, my opinion is simple. Every successful NFL season usually has a few unexpected heroes. Players who go from question marks to difference makers. Players who elevate everyone around them. And after looking at this roster, I think Miami has several candidates who could completely change the direction of this season. Let's start with the player who may have the biggest responsibility of anyone on the defensive side of the football. Chop Robinson. Honestly, everything about Miami's pass rush may depend on him taking a major leap this season. When you look back at his rookie year, it's easy to understand why so many fans were excited. After being selected in the first round in 2024, he finished with 6 sacks and closed the season playing some outstanding football. During the final stretch of that rookie campaign, he ranked among the league's most productive pass rushers, generating consistent pressure and winning his matchups at an impressive rate. That finish created enormous expectations entering the following season. Unfortunately, things didn't unfold the way many fans expected. His opportunities became inconsistent, and when chances came later in the season, he wasn't able to produce at the same level he had shown during that incredible stretch of his rookie year. Now, the spotlight is back on him. And this time, the responsibility feels even bigger. Miami added veterans and young depth to the edge room, but the discussion makes one thing very clear. If this pass rush is going to become a true strength, Chop Robinson has to be the player who elevates the entire group. Imagine if he rediscovers the form he showed during the second half of his rookie season. Imagine him consistently living in opposing backfields. Imagine him becoming the disruptive force everyone believed he could become. If that happens, the entire Dolphins defense suddenly becomes much more dangerous. And honestly, that's why I think Chop Robinson may be one of the biggest X factors on this roster. But as important as the pass rush is, there's another player whose impact could be even greater. Because no position changes a football team faster than quarterback. And that brings us to Malik Willis. What I'm about to tell you about his role, why the entire offense may depend on his development, and why another young player could quietly become one of Miami's biggest surprises this year completely changes the conversation. When you think about the importance of the quarterback position, it's easy to understand why so much attention is focused on Malik Willis. Quarterbacks have the ability to completely change the direction of a football team. And according to the discussion, that's exactly the situation Miami finds itself in entering this season. The Dolphins made a significant investment in Willis. Now comes the part that matters most. The performance. Because this offense will ultimately go as Malik Willis goes. There's optimism surrounding the offensive line. There's confidence that the running game can improve. But in today's NFL, running the football alone simply isn't enough. Eventually, your quarterback has to make plays through the air. He has to create explosive moments. He has to elevate the players around him. And that's exactly why Willis has become one of the biggest game changers on this roster. If he develops into a legitimate starting quarterback, if he consistently pushes the ball down the field, if he becomes the player the Dolphins believe he can be, suddenly the entire outlook of the season changes. But if he struggles to consistently create offense through the passing game, Miami's ceiling becomes much lower. That's how important this season is for him. Then we arrive at another fascinating storyline. Jonah Savaiania. Few players have more to prove entering training camp. His rookie season was extremely difficult. The discussion doesn't try to hide that reality. But instead of giving up on him, the Dolphins have created an opportunity for a fresh start. The move back to right guard could completely change his development. It's a position that feels much more natural for him. And perhaps even more encouraging, the coaching staff has continued expressing confidence in what he can become. Offensive line coach Zach Yenser has spoken positively about the transition, believing that moving back to the right side should allow Jonah to play with more confidence while taking advantage of the movement skills that originally made him such an intriguing prospect. Sometimes confidence from coaches makes a tremendous difference. Sometimes a position change unlocks a player's potential. And that's exactly what Miami is hoping happens here. Because if Jonah improves from where he was as a rookie to becoming a dependable starter, the impact extends far beyond one position. A stronger offensive line helps the running game. It gives the quarterback more time. It improves the offense as a whole. That's why his development could quietly become one of the biggest stories of the season. Then comes a player who might surprise a lot of Dolphins fans. Caleb Douglas. The rookie wide receiver enters the league with intriguing physical tools. Good size, athletic ability, the potential to stretch defenses vertically. Those traits immediately grab your attention. At the same time, the discussion also points out areas that still need improvement. Route running, consistency, drops that appeared during his college career and were also mentioned during spring practices. Those are legitimate challenges. But so is the opportunity sitting in front of him. The current wide receiver room leaves room for someone to emerge. And according to the discussion, Douglas may have the highest upside among the available outside receivers if he reaches his potential. That's a big opportunity for a rookie. If he develops quickly, if he earns the trust of Malik Willis, if he becomes a reliable target, he could have a much larger role than many people expect during his first NFL season. And we're still not done, because there's one more young player whose development could quietly stabilize the entire defense. A player the coaching staff has repeatedly praised throughout the offseason. The final player on this list may not receive as many headlines as some of the others, but his development could be just as important. Dante Trader Jr. When you look at the Dolphins secondary, one detail immediately stands out. Trader is the only safety returning from last year's roster. Several new faces have entered the room. New veterans. New rookies. New competition. Yet despite all of those changes, the organization has continued showing confidence in Dante Trader Jr. His rookie season certainly wasn't perfect. The discussion points out that he struggled in coverage early on. There's no hiding that. Like many young defensive backs, there was a learning curve adjusting to the speed of the NFL. But what continues to separate Trader from many young players is everything that happens away from the stat sheet. He's described as a smart football player. Someone who works extremely hard. Someone who leads by example every single day. Those are qualities coaches value just as much as physical talent. In fact, throughout the offseason, the coaching staff has continued speaking very highly of him. Head coach Jeff Hafley has repeatedly shown confidence